Hello everyone, welcome to SaaStock Local. If you'd like to take a seat, come to the front as well. Those at the back, there's a couple more seats here at the front. Before we start, I just wanted to ask if anyone here is familiar with SaaStock or have heard of SaaStock before. Not too many of you, hey? 3, 4 people. And you've been to a SaaStock event? Well, I'll explain what SaaStock is. It's one of Europe's largest SaaS conferences. It's based in Dublin every year. And before we start SaaStock Local, I'm just going to talk you through the vision, the mission of SaaStock, what the SaaStock Local initiative is all about, and what our plans are for that event. And then we're going to just talk about a few of the sponsors that we have, how we've organized this first event, chosen our theme, our speakers, and then we'll move into our topic for today's event. Okay, so what is SaaStock? Let me first explain. Around 4,000 or more SaaS founders and execs meet every year in Dublin, and the content is really fantastic. I've been to the last 2 events, and it's full of themes all about growing, scaling, common challenges for SaaS founders and execs in the journey to building a successful SaaS company. I went to the very first meetup in London for SaaStock, and it was a meetup smaller than this one, about 4 years ago. And since then, it's become a global series of events. So now there's a SaaStock in US, in the East and West Coast. There's one in Asia, Hong Kong. There's one in Australasia. So it really is a global event now. And that brings us to what's happening now with SaaStock Local. So SaaStock Local is a series of events that will be hosted in major cities all across the world. At the moment, there are 7 that have launched, and Barcelona is one of them. And there are also 25 under review. So there's going to be plenty more great events coming around the world, and they're basically designed to bridge the gap between the big SaaStock conferences. So the mission here for SaaStock is to build the biggest global community of SaaS professionals, essentially. And as part of this, we want to make fun events. We want to bring the ecosystem together for Barcelona. So Barcelona has a really good potential for this. There are some really great SaaS companies here already, as you'll see from some of the speakers today. And every 3 months, we're going to be putting on an event like this to build and learn from all of the experiences and the challenges the founders have had. So let's just talk about our sponsors that helped us organize this first event. So first of all, we can't do the event without mentioning Movie Star Centre, who've been really helpful and obviously providing this wonderful space for us, and even recording the event, so there'll be videos to see afterwards for anyone who missed it or anything you want to look back on. And then the main sponsors for this event, besides Movie Star, are myself and Javier, who are putting our work into organizing and making sure these events are filled with really relevant content and really great stuff. So I work in product. I'm a product consultant. I do UX and UI design and consulting for product for SaaS companies. And Javier runs the SaaS Institute, which is a fantastic consultancy designed to help founders scale their SaaS companies with systems and strategies to do that. So if you need help in either of those areas, come and talk to either of us. And then also, we have some partners who without them, we wouldn't be able to make the event and organize the event as we have. So first of all, there's Utterly Events. Utterly are the girls at the back. You can give us a wave. There they are. Utterly registered you in. Utterly organize events for scaling tech companies, essentially, and founders. So they're a really great company based here in Barcelona if you ever need them. We have help with Dominic Weaver, who is videoing today. And Dominic does video for SaaS companies, essentially. Video for product demos as well. Toby from Lead Lions. Toby's here. Toby does outbound lead generation for SaaS companies. So anyone that needs help drumming up leads and bringing on board more users, Toby's your man to speak to. And also Barcino. Has anyone heard of Barcino Anyone here knows Barcino? It's a tech publication that it's one of the largest here in Barcelona for tech events and a blog. So they're helping us to promote. So there we go. Those are our partners. And since this is our first event, it goes without saying that we're building this ecosystem, and there's opportunities to be involved with us, to take a pivotal role in helping us build the ecosystem and these events and having exposure to our audiences here. So if you'd be interested in sponsoring, or you know anybody who would be interested, please speak to myself or Javier, because we'd love to build on that. So that leads us into today's theme, which is internationalization. So let me just ask, how many companies here are working on scaling internationally at the moment? It's about, I'd say about 15 of you here. How many of you are SaaS founders? How many in the audience are SaaS founders? Got about 10 SaaS founders. How many of you are working in a SaaS company? Okay, good. And are the ones, what have we got, service providers for SaaS? Yeah? Okay, so we have a mixed audience. We have a mixed audience. We're going to bring our speakers up now, and we're going to tackle all of the challenges about international scaling, selling outside of Spain to countries abroad, the challenge that you'd face. So I'd like to welcome up our speakers on stage. Juan Zamora, if you'd like to come up, from Signaturit. Alex Bisbe from Whisbi. And also we have Oriol Juncosa from Encomenda. So we have essentially two talented founders here and a VC. All have experiences with scaling and the challenges of selling internationally and growing the business outside of Spain. I'm just gonna start by asking you all to introduce yourselves just briefly, yourself and your company, and just touch on your current situation as well, or where you are now with international sales. And let's start with you, Juan.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Juan Zamora, CEO and co-founder at Signaturit. At Signaturit, we help companies make all the communications between customers and staff digital, automated, and secure. We are doing this today with a portfolio of three main services that are e-signatures, providing the three levels that are legally approved in the European Union, e-delivery, it means that we can certify any communication, and another tool that is for the identification part. Until now, we have raised more than 10 million euros. We have more than 10,000 users and a team of more than 75 people. Actually, well, nowadays we are starting all the internationalization part. Last year we were trying to go abroad, but well, we did a lot of mistakes, and now we are changing a little bit our strategy and trying to approach the market in a very different way.
Perfect. Okay, and Alex, do you want to introduce yourself and Whisbi?
Yes, my name is Alex Bisbe. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Whisbi. Whisbi is a conversational marketing solution for enterprises. We provide services to automotive and telecommunications companies across the world. We started, as a SaaS company in 2014. We are close to 100 employees right now in different locations. And we started, seriously with internationalization almost 3 years ago. And today, our, international business is 70%. So I'm happy, with the evolution in the international, approach within the company. And obviously, well, our goal now is to continue, scaling, especially outside of Spain.
Great. So you already have a good situation of 70% of customers outside of Spain. So good bit of experience to get to that point so far. And Oriol, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, please.
Sure. Thank you, and thank you for having me here. My name is Oriol Juncosa. I'm managing partner and co-founder of Encomenda Capital. We are the most active VC in Spain. Last year, we invested in 11 companies. This year, we have already invested in 4 companies. I'm also co-founder and partner of White Peak Partners, which is an international boutique for M&A for technology companies. Before that, I was a CFO and early employee of CartoDB, which is a SaaS company based in Madrid. We raised around $30 million from Early Bird and Axel Partners in 2015, 2016. I have also invested in a number of SaaS companies, some of them locally based, like Lambot, Force Manager, Holded, Mailtrack, and so forth. And I have also worked with a number of other companies that have also scaled, SaaS companies that have also scaled quite a lot, like Bluely, for instance, a cybersecurity company here, also here based in Barcelona. And I'm really sort of keen to find the next generation of SaaS companies. So if anyone wants to receive investment or to have a talk about that, please grab me after the talk.
Yeah, and you'll be ready to scale internationally as well after this.
Yes.
Okay, so I've had a good chat with each of you guys and have a good background on your experiences and where you are now. Let me just quickly take another poll of the audience because I want to find out what's the most interesting place for you right now? Are you small stage companies looking to scale in the future internationally, or how many of you are interested in the early stage, the first attempts to sell outside? Okay. And your startup kind of stage, yeah? How about you've already got some experience and you're looking to scale internationally? You already have an international sales operation. Anyone like that here? Okay, so yeah, it's a good mix. So we're going to touch on both of those. Let me start with you, Juan, because when we spoke, you explained your experience of your first attempt selling internationally, right? And you mentioned you found it challenging, and I'd love you to share your experience with that for the insights that you found. What was the most difficult part of it, and what do you think you would do differently from that experience?
For us, one of the most difficult points was to look locally. I mean, for the product that we are selling, you can imagine that is super related with the legality in every country. So it was super challenging to provide a technology that brings the trust into the customers, to look like a local company, to comply with all the local regulations. Although there is a European regulation that allows people to use our solution, it's very different, the processes that you have to do in one country or in another one. For example, we are really focused for HR departments, but the process that you have to do in Germany is very different than in Spain. There are some kind of documents that you can sign with our solution, others that you cannot. So you have to identify and do a really deep analysis in all these kind of different use cases before going international. The problem was that at the beginning we were trying to say, okay, if in Spain they are doing this process in that way, I mean that, or we understand that it will be more or less the same in other countries, but it was absolutely a big mistake, and at the end it's very, very different. No?
Yeah, so you have, what I've witnessed so far is that there are two kind of different challenges with culture. Many SaaS companies have a unique challenge dependent on their products, so what they do. And obviously with Signaturit, it's being related to the legal matters. The culture for that is different in many countries. So obviously that's something that you were challenged with. Whereas, for instance, Alex, you mentioned you didn't have a challenge with culture selling, because it's kind of a marketing tech platform, right, that you're selling. So you found that the culture internationally wasn't really a challenge, but you perhaps had different challenges to what Juan experienced.
Yes, our experience is a little bit different because we tackle large corporations, large enterprises, so their needs are pretty similar. I mean, Toyota Spain and Toyota France or Toyota UK, they have similar, requirements. So because at the end it's the same company, and we are tackling all of them. So instead of trying to have like different strategies, like local strategies, we decided since the very beginning to have like a very global, like a very international approach everywhere, like the same approach in the UK, in Germany, Spain, Portugal, or Italy, exactly the same. Everything in English. We don't have documentation in local languages because we wanted to position it as ourselves as an international global brand, that we provide a unique solution and with a clear, KPIs. And for us, that was a successful strategy in order to tackle this company. So it depends a lot, and I think, it is because of the size of the companies, because at the end, in these large corporations, everybody speaks English, and the culture are not very different between the countries, no? So that was our experience.
So you almost had a benefit selling to the bigger kind of companies, what we'd call the elephants of companies, because you found the culture they have here is similar abroad, because it's a company culture really, rather than a kind of national culture,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
But did you experience that, Juan? Did you experience that, or?
No, for us it's a problem. You must have all the platform in the language of the country. You must go to the country with local people to bring this trust in our solution, because it's a really specific process that it comes when you have to sign the contract with your end user, no? So it's like the most important part of the selling process of your company. So they must be sure that you are complying with all the regulation, that all the platforms in the same language, because they are going to use this solution not internally. They are going to use this solution to send contracts to their customers, for example. Yeah. And most of them, not everybody speaks English, for example, in France. I was super surprised, for example, I went to a meeting with AXA, and we lost this opportunity because the meeting was not held in French. No? The first question that they asked to me was, okay, but it's going to be in English, the meeting. So it was like, okay, man, so. Yeah. But they.
Yeah. So, I think that it very much depends on what's the use case that you're covering. I mean, for instance, one of the companies that they worked early on, what they were really early was Typeform. No, I mean, and also Mailtrack. From the get-go, they were very international, and on the because also the process of using, or the use case, is very smooth. Okay, I mean, the sense that there's no regulations, there's no specific things that you sort of need to comply with in order to be relevant to your customers, no? And that makes, I mean, sort of, I mean, you go international, I mean, from the get-go, or with Carto. I mean, I joined the company when we were 10. I mean, already 30% of the revenue was coming from the US, and 50%, but it was very smooth, everything. I mean, in contrast, I mean, Holded is another company in which I am an investor, and it happens more or less like Signaturit, in the sense that you need to do the accounting for the country. So you need to be very specific. If you want to go to France, I mean, no matter what, you need to comply with the French regulations. I would say that, just finally, on top of that, there's also the mindset of the entrepreneur. There's entrepreneurs that say, I need to be very solid in my own country and then start a new country, and others that say, hey, I mean, I'm going to try it elsewhere and I will fail elsewhere, and let's see how it goes. Yeah.
That brings us on to an interesting point, actually, which is the timing. And this is relevant for the people that are in the early stage and thinking about when is the right time. Do you have a recommendation on the right time for this? Or do you think this is also case specific? On the right time to start international sales?
I think it's very specific, no? Depending on the company and the product and the market that you are tackling. In our case, obviously you need to tackle a market big enough for the company to scale. And in our case, we are a vertical solution. So we need to be international since day one, because at the end we are tackling a specific industry. So there is no enough market for us only in Spain.
So each SaaS company will have a unique experience with this as well, but I feel there will be companies that pass product market fit stage and seed funding, and they maybe haven't started actively selling internationally. Is there a time that you that you feel is right for just the size, or really it's different for each?
For me, let me be just controversial. For me, the question is, why are you not international on your first client? So, I mean, there needs to be a very strong reasoning why maybe not your first client, but your second client cannot be international. Because, I mean, let me put it that if you go to Portugal, or if you go to the Netherlands, I think that nobody there is questioning, I mean, the need for being international. No, it's just this ingrained. Okay, so to me in Spain, my question is, why your second client is not international?
I agree. If I will do it again, I will try to go international since the very beginning, no? Trying to approach the market in other countries and trying to be an international company since the very beginning, because now, for example, it's more difficult, no? You have a lot of processes, you have a lot of the structure of the team, all these kind of things. You have to rebuild some parts of the company, no, to go international. It's not like, okay, from today to tomorrow I can go sell abroad.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good takeaway for anyone wondering when to start. If you're able to, from the very beginning, to start considering it and reaching out to clients and customers outside of Spain, you're in a strong position. Let me just come back to both of your experiences, because you've both got really interesting stories about how you've managed to start getting international customers. And Juan, with you, first of all, you had the challenge of the product and the culture internationally for legal matters. And then also, you felt you chased perhaps the wrong kind of customers in the beginning, maybe too large. But now you're having a much better experience with this, right? So can you talk us through what you're doing differently and what's working for you this time?
Well, for example, last year we were trying to approach super big customers, enterprise customers, and it was super difficult for us. We went to a lot of trade shows. We were trying to close these deals that took a lot of time for us, and it was like throwing a coin, no? Competing with local competitors. So all this confidence, we didn't have this trust in our company. We were a really young company, so it was super difficult to close these deals, and took a lot of time for us. So we were wasting a lot of time, no? Summarizing a little bit, well, we have learned, but now what we are doing is to approach the mid-market, where we can predict more or less the sales cycle. We can generate some good references to then go to attack the big fish, no? But we must, as I said, no, we are trying to build this local presence before going to close the big enterprises, because it's very difficult if you don't have these references or this trust in the local market.
Yeah. So when we were talking, you were talking about researching a little bit more. For you, that's really important, to understand the culture and understand the differences with the law, and then also researching the kind of customers you'll find, and maybe getting some feedback from initial attempts to make some initial sales, right? What I find interesting about both of you too is that you have quite different experiences, right? Alex, you haven't had that same need, and even with selling into large companies, you haven't found the challenge that Juan did, because you found it almost easier because they have the same culture as the ones that you're familiar with here. So can you tell us a bit about your strategy now, because it was really interesting how you were discussing developing an agile sales methodology and using sales squads. So this is a system, if you're not familiar, that Alex and his team have been working on and been getting some good results. So if you can explain that for everyone, that would be a really interesting point.
Sure. Well, we started this initiative, it was like December 2017. It was a moment where, well, we used to have a sales VP before December 2017, and then we realized that we had a great sales VP to scale the company from 0 to a certain level, but we needed to make some changes to make the system more scalable. So in a meeting with Javier Darriba, who is here, we thought about the idea of creating sales squads and mixing the account executives with the BDMs and the SDRs so they can work in a, they can put together strategies to tackle specific companies. So they decide together which companies are they going to tackle in the next days or weeks. And then the SDRs start to generate the first, meetings. Then automatically the BDM takes the control of that opportunity and does the first, pitch and then the lead qualification. And then the process, it is completed at the end with the account executive, which is a more senior guy and can, negotiate conditions, prepare an offer. So we did this type of sales process, and we increased the sales velocity by 3 times in 2018 by introducing this concept, because they work with the same goals. I mean, the SDRs, BDMs, and account executives, they have exactly the same goals, and their commission is like, related to the achievement of that specific squad. And now this year we have implemented also the customer success within that squads. So everything in the company is going to be account-based, because we tackle large corporations. So when they sign with a Toyota UK, for example, then the relationship with that customer will remain within that squad. Okay? So we'll see, if the CS works or not, but at least in sales we have seen a great improvement.
So you have squads of 4. You have the SDRs, the sales development reps, and they're essentially doing the cold outreach.
Correct.
Yeah? And then
Yes.
the business development managers, who are taking those prospects.
We'll do more the qualification.
Yeah.
Because at the end, SDRs, they generate a lot of volume, but BDMs, they need to pitch, they need to organize the first meeting, and then the account executive usually travels with the BDM in a face-to-face meeting, like in the late stage of the opportunity, and closes the opportunity. And we are now tackling large corporations. Last year, we closed 2018 with a sales cycle of 5.6 months, with considering that we tackle corporations. It's a very short sales cycle.
Yeah, I see.
I think just one thing. Anyone that wants to sell to US Fortune 100, okay, you better listen to Alex. Okay, he's very humble. He will not say it. But this is probably the only company in Barcelona that has been consistently selling to Fortune 100 from Barcelona. Okay, I mean, I don't know whether you already have an office or not, but you have. Okay, so I mean, whether it works in clusters, in tribes, or whatever, just listen to it, because it's gems. No, I mean, to be honest with you,
I don't know.
no, which is good, because it's very tough to sell to those guys on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, everybody would like to do that. I mean, people are starting from the SME level and going up. You're starting at the top already.
And the other interesting point is that you're just based in Spain, right? In Catalonia. You don't have an office outside of here, or?
We do, but sales are only based in Barcelona. Well, in Madrid as well, but Madrid only for the Spanish market and Latin America. But we can sell from Barcelona to the US or to the UK or to the Nordics. I think we have a case where we can demonstrate that it is possible. We have signed, from Barcelona we have customers like Verizon in the States, 3 in the UK, Vodafone in Germany. So we can sign, global contracts or, with big corporations from Barcelona, because, well, my recommendation is always to hire people with experience on that specific country. So we have, for the DACH region market, we have a German squad that are all Germans, okay? But all the content is in English, but they speak obviously in German with their customers. No? So this is it's possible. And Barcelona, it gives us the possibility to build international teams here.
Mm. I mean, actually, I have to tell you that as an investor, when a company tells me, yeah, we're going to build a New York office or a West Coast office, start to think about, okay, that will be 500K down the drain in 6 months or in 12 months. I mean, the reality is that the success rate of putting a big office somewhere that is 6 to 9 hours away is very, very low. Okay, and the cost of that is just amazing. I mean, I've been with a number of companies that have replaced their US BP sales 3 times over the last 5 years. And each time it's just, you have to go through to a headhunter, that's 50K, you have to do a signing bonus, you have to whatever.
Well, we had that experience.
Yeah.
We opened an office in Menlo Park, California. It was like 2016, I think. And it lasted the office there only 1 year. And in 1 year, we burned €1 million to get 0 customers. So we have now customers in the US, but all of them have been sold from Barcelona.
Yeah. Well, there was a really good talk at one of the main SaaStock events, the last one, Pipedrive, and they opened an office in the States and for a few years, and they said it really messed up the company culture. It was really difficult for them. Yeah. They said they felt that they needed to do it, and it was something they had to do, and it did open a lot of opportunities. But in the end, they closed the office and went back and stayed in their headquarters. So I see mixed stories about this. Okay. Some people need to do it, but they still really struggle, and others possible without.
With Carto, for instance, I mean, Carto has a US office, okay, and Carto DB, and it's been okay, but I mean, if you look at the economics of what you get here versus what you get there, at least at the beginning, okay, it's tough. I mean, yeah, there's some companies that you say, I need to, I mean, if you want to sell into the US government, you probably need to have, to at least to be registered there, no? Or into large sort of US public corporations, but otherwise, I mean, just go with caution, at least, go with caution.
And especially sales. I don't mean, you don't need to put sales at the beginning. I mean, once you have business there, I think to provide service, local service, I think it's needed in many cases. But be careful with sales. Sales is very expensive.
Right. So there were a couple of other topics that I want us to touch on. One is the markets you choose, like the countries and how you choose which markets to go into. Do you, again, is this a matter of it's different for each company, or do you feel that there are some markets that are more favourable to approach based here in Catalonia? And let me start with you, Juan, on this topic. Is it very specific, the market that you look for based on, I imagine it would be based on the kind of legal service, right?
For sure. In our case, for example, we were at the very beginning, we were trying to approach, for example, the Netherlands, but we saw that in terms of regulation, it was very similar than in the States, because at the end, one of the main differences with our solution against DocuSign, for example, or other US-based companies is the legal validity that we are providing in the European Union. So the problem there was that they didn't appreciate this competitive advantage. No? Then we were evaluating other markets like UK. It was the same, very similar than the States. But what we have seen is, for example, that in Italy, France, Germany, this is more similar than what we are doing here in Spain in terms of processes, regulation, and then the size of the market is very, very good, no, as well. So we decided to choose to start in these markets, and look like it's going quite well.
Good. So for you, it's quite a strategic decision based on assessing those markets as well. Oriol, from the perspective of an investor or VC, do you? What's your opinion on the markets? If you're looking at a company, how do you assess? What the best markets are for them, and if you feel like they have good opportunities for internationalization?
I mean, I've seen countless metrics about, okay, let me explore 10 markets and we will see all the, hey, this market is so big, it's so large, there are not many competitors, I mean, I can charge an ARPA of so much, whatever, no? I mean, at the end, you come down to a number of agreements and so forth. My recommendation is always, don't fuck up your best market first, okay? Fuck up your second market, and then you go for the best second. I mean, in the sense that, going to what you were saying about culture, no? I think that if assuming that you're going to be selling internationally from from a local, from a central hub, okay, like for instance you're doing, you will need to add people, okay, with different languages and so forth, no? I mean, if you really have a very clear rating of what's your best market, okay, at least to start with your launch, your initial launch, okay, go for your second market, because you will need to adjust so many things that, particularly if you are concerned about sort of branding, if you are concerned about your trust pilot. I mean, for instance, trust pilot at the beginning tends to be shitty, okay? So, I mean, just don't go. I mean, if you want to go to the US, because US is your first market, okay, unless you have very clear targets, there are a number of people that go first to Canada, for instance, or go first to the UK. I mean, maybe not to sort of full-blown, but just kind of sort of try sort of, I mean, a couple of customers, particularly if you're doing quite a lot of inbound. If you're doing more outbound, then, I mean, that's fine because you're very targeted, no? But if you're doing inbound, so many people are going to know about you, many people are going to be looking at your trust pilot and so forth, then try to do it this way. And I would say, I mean, if you are doing that from a central location, I would recommend probably sort of first doing someone in your time zone, okay? I mean, sort of Europe first. So your first trial, it's better that it's Europe, at least try a couple of customers there. I mean, ensure that your SDRs that speak a language that maybe half of your company doesn't speak, they come and sort of come well, or they integrate well with your organization, and then sort of move either west or east. And speaking out east, I mean, Asia is neglected all the time, okay? Whilst, I mean, it can be a significant market for a number of people, and we see that more and more investors are looking at people that have sort of what I would call an Asian strategy, an Asian angle, particularly the Asian investors that they want to welcome sort of more people selling there. No? Those would be my thoughts.
Good, really good points of view on that. And Alex, how about you? Did you choose specific markets? Was it based on the clients you already had, big companies, and if you had the client here, maybe it would translate when you sell into the other countries? Is that the way you decided to approach it?
Yeah, not really, because you need to think also on what happens after the signature with a customer. No? You need to provide a kind of service. No? You need to do support. You need to do customer success. So I think it's important to tackle this, reasonable time zone where you can manage the service, after the signature. So what we have decided to start with Europe. I mean, for me, it's the same effort to sell in Portugal than UK or Germany. So we started with UK and Germany because it's more attractive for investors, to be honest. So that's why we, started with these markets. And as soon as we achieve the financial stability to tackle Americas, we started with Americas. So it was more related to the capacity of providing, service after the signature.
Okay. To ensure you can deliver adequate service in that.
Correct.
country.
Yes.
Yeah.
For example, we just signed this week a contract with our first contract in New Zealand. Okay. And one of the conditions that I put on the contract is to the account executive is if you sign this contract, this customer is going to pay a full-time dedicated customer success manager, because with the time difference, it's impossible to manage it from Barcelona or even from the States where we have a small team.
So your customer will hire a success manager, or you are hiring?
No, we're going to hire, but they're going to pay.
They're going to pay, and,
Yes.
and they're going to be the success manager.
They
is
already
based
agree
here.
with this, yes, because I mean, it's important to think about what is going to happen after the signature.
Yeah.
If you, I mean, to sell globally, it sounds super, fancy, but I mean, there is a consequence behind.
Yeah, the reality is of having to supply and deliver that.
But in the UK,
service.
if there is a problem, you take a plane in 1 hour and 50 minutes, you are there. So for me, it's like tackling a local market.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is true. How about capital? This is probably the last topic I want to just touch on. And I think Signaturit, you've had a Series A. and you're on Series B and B.1.
Yeah.
How important has capital been for international selling for you? I'm under the impression that you required it in order to do that, or is there something that the earlier stage companies here can start doing if they don't have the resource and capital to say put together a sales squad? What would you recommend they can do, without that kind of level of resource? Let's start with you.
Okay. Perfect. Well, yes, I think that if you want to raise capital from international VCs, it's key that you are starting to sell abroad. At least show that you have a plan and that you are generating the first revenues with international customers, that you have a clear vision of what you are going to do, what you are going to attack during the next couple of months or whatever. If not, it's absolutely impossible. It depends the stage of the funding round that you are trying to raise. If it's a seed round, so maybe with the plan it's enough. If it's a Series A, you will have to show some results. And then from Series B or Series C, if you are not selling abroad, it's impossible to close a funding round with an international VC. So if you are not thinking globally or you are not going to create a global company, you have to raise capital from local investors that are really good investors here as well. But this is a very, very different approach in terms of the funding strategy of your company. Yeah.
So what would you say if they're just beginning to do sales, abroad from base here in Barcelona, but haven't really gotten to Series A yet? Is it really putting together a plan and a strategy in order to raise the funds to do it?
Strategy plan and showing that this is true. No, I mean that okay, I have the team, at least one person, I have some results, some KPIs that you can show, that you can discuss. It's not only to show the business plan and saying yes, we are going to sell abroad, but we are not doing anything about it. So it's a realistic plan that you can then go and use to fundraise. We have, I don't know, some feedback from customers that we are talking with in Germany, in France, or wherever, no? But it's very important that, because at the end investors, they talk with I don't know how many companies per year, so they know all the tricks that you can do in this process, so even better than you. So I think that this feedback and providing that this is a real plan and that the idea of the company, the vision is to be global, this is key to talk with international investors. And do you gauge some feedback before raising the funds? On your strategy, do you go out and try to implement that strategy the best you can before raising a round? I think it's the best point or the best thing that you can do, trying to get this feedback. But at the end, the good thing as well is that I think that at least here in Barcelona, we are attracting a lot of international VCs as well. A lot of them are interested. So if they see that there is a real market opportunity and that you have this clear vision of going global, you can close this funding round with other international VCs that we have seen with other companies. No? If they see that the potential of the tool, that you can scale, that you are doing great in your local market and showing that you can close or replicate the same process in international markets. So it's for a very early stage, I think it's the best that you can do. No? Bring these international VCs inside the company, because at the end they have a global vision of how to do things, and on the top of that, they are going to put all the pressure over you to sell abroad, no? Because sometimes if not, it's a bit different, no? You don't have this pressure and you are more comfortable selling here, and well, you can get accommodated in that way. Yeah, okay. Alex, is there a version of the sales squad that you could recommend as a first test? For, say you don't use 4 people and set up this team and have the resource to do that, what would you recommend for a scaled down version for an earlier stage company?
Well, I don't recommend to create a full squad when you are an early stage startup, because it's too risky. I mean, I think the best way it is to start with SDRs, because this is something, at least with one SDR, generating the first meetings. I think this is essential, because and then to have at least one good account executive that can close deals in Europe, let's say. Okay, so for me, that's the minimum approach to start to tackle a market, because usually account executives are not good prospecting and are not good generating first meetings, and they don't want to do it. So I mean, for me, it's very important to start with an SDR, even before, at least in my experience, even before starting to invest money on digital campaigns, on digital marketing. I think, you know, for me, the sales needs to start with an SDR and at least one good account executive.
And then you build it up from there, because this is the other thing that you started doing, wasn't it? It's to do digital campaigns after 6 months after you have a sales squad operating in an area. It's to implement a marketing campaign to start pushing content, and very targeted campaigns as well to the actual accounts that you're going after, right? So that's obviously another way to scale up. So once you've gotten to the stage that you have the resource to build up these sales squads, you can then build on marketing teams to back them up.
Yes, for this project, we started with Tony from the SaaS Institute, who's here.
With Tony?
Tony is there. I can see.
Where is he? Oh, there.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I think we started last summer with this project, building our first ABM campaign, because we have invested in the past in digital marketing campaigns, and with not great results in terms of ROI. So with Tony, we put together a plan to create an ABM campaign. It was with the idea of tackling the companies that we want to tackle, like creating a campaign just specifically for that specific companies, and for the people who has specific positions within that companies, and especially using LinkedIn, starting to create content and actions to these decision makers, and it worked extremely well. And now we are impacting around 200 leads per month using this strategy, which is 50-something opportunities per month, so with not a great investment. So I think it's a very recommendable strategy.
It sounds really great, that highly focused level of digital marketing. Really effective. Yeah, Oriol, you want to add something?
Just on the fundraising area, I have had the pleasure to work, either help entrepreneurs or invest in entrepreneurs that have raised over 150 million over the last couple of years. And there are 4 areas that I think are key to have your fundraising. One is differentiation, second is growth, third is retention, fourth is international. At the very beginning, differentiation, then growth, then retention, then international. And as Juan was saying, I mean, international starts to be key, if not essential, at the pre-Series A level. When you want to raise 1 to 1.5 million. Before that, if you have it, thumbs up. If you don't have it, at least you need to have differentiation, growth, and retention. Okay? And to me, the reality is that you want to have at the very beginning someone, okay, either a VC or a BA, someone that is close to you, that has the experience to try to walk you through or to help you through going through those 4 dimensions. Okay? But as soon as you are at least with the initial 2 or with the initial 3, okay, having the experience of international people that may be based in London, in the US, or whatever, I think it's very good. But at the beginning, you need to be meaningful for the people that are going to invest in your company. You need to try even to create a personal relationship with them, and you do that in the short distance. Okay.
Good. I think we're going to come to the end. I want to ask if there's anything else that you all feel that you want to add that we haven't touched on. Is there any topic you feel we've covered it quite well? And also, we don't have a mic, but I wonder if anyone has any questions and would like to call any out. Does do you have something you want to ask? If you shout it out, I'll repeat it if everyone can't hear.
Yeah, it's a question for Alex. I can see how an SDR can work the UK market or the US market from Barcelona. How do you do that?
So I'll just highlight that. It's having an SDR that can work from here, selling into UK or France or Europe, for instance. Or the US.
That's easy because you do that over the phone, over LinkedIn, over here. But when it comes to having regular meetings or creating a relationship, how do you do that from Barcelona with the US?
Yeah, so how do you build the relationship when you're essentially selling remotely, right? You're trying to develop leads remotely. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, well, we are trying to do as much as possible within the sales process purely online, using Zoom or whatever video call solution. So we are trying to move and generate like virtual meetings as much as possible in the process, and then but in our case we need to travel. We tackle large corporations, so we organize meetings, and then we usually need to organize or concentrate like 2 or 3 meetings for one trip, even if it's in London, if it's in New York or Atlanta or whatever. So that's the way we do it. So I mean, it requires a big budget, especially if you tackle the US from here. It requires a big budget in terms of travel, but the process is the same in the US or the UK, with the only difference the time difference. But all the process, it is exactly the same.
So if you had an SDR generating about 20 opportunities for the US, you would rather have someone traveling from Barcelona or someone.
Yes, what we did is to hire an American account executive based in Barcelona, not only tackling the US, because it can be difficult, but tackling, for example, UK and US, which are similar in some cases, and then mixing both, because they can, and then they can travel to both places in the last stage of the opportunity, in the last stages. Yeah.
Good. Do you have an experience on this as well? Do you do a lot of prospecting, like SDR selling from using Zoom?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree absolutely that at the end the process must be the same. If you have someone,
I don't know, for example, we had the experience on having an account executive in Germany and all the SDRs in Spain, and we had a lot of problems aligning both teams. No, we are not working on squads, we are working on pods, SDR pod, account executive pod, and then customer success. But it's very important it's very difficult to align this process when they are at the office. So imagine if you have some parts of this process that are, I don't know, in Germany, for example. So you lost a lot of communication. And what we are doing right now is trying to, for example, selling 100% online. And if we have to go to visit some customers in Germany, we try to centralize in 1 week, for example, and then go there and visit these customers, but only if they are tier 1 customers, I mean enterprises. If not, they cannot do in-person meetings. And it doesn't matter the country, the process is the same to Germany or...
Yes. Just adding one thing. For example, we don't put budget limits for travel. I mean, we can, control a lot of cost, but travel cannot be an excuse for closing a deal. So, I mean, and I think it's important to have this mentality. And I think it's more important to invest on company culture than having one guy working remotely in a WeWork in Dublin, for example. Because at the end, this guy is going to be disconnected from the team, disconnected from the company, disconnected from the culture, and then the performance is going to be way lower. So, in my opinion, it's better to spend more on travel and keep the team together, because at the end, especially in early stages, company culture, it's key.
Good. Let's answer the question. Sounds good, right? Any others? We'll probably have time for one or two more. Yeah, do you want to shout it out?
Yeah, I've got a question about translation. So more about like inbound lead generation. So I'm advertising in a lot of countries. If we're looking at Europe, we're having already 10 different languages that we're advertising
What sector? What kind of product do you?
It's not SaaS, it's innovation.
Okay, fine. So for those who didn't hear, that question is based on if you have a lot of different markets that you can sell to, but every time you need to sell to them, you have to translate your platform. There's a lot of work that goes into that. How do you manage it essentially? And I think this is best for you.
Yeah.
Juan, yeah.
Well, first of all, as we were talking, it depends the product that you are selling, but in our case, for example, is key. And to have all the documentation in a specific language of each market. If not, we are losing this trust or this confidence we are trying to sell. So at the end, we are collaborating with external consultancies that we can translate all this information in a very short term. All the platform is ready to incorporate a new language in less than 2 weeks, for example. So if we have a requirement from other customers, we have all ready to, maybe not drag and drop, but mostly, more or less, and to have all ready. And then, well, getting a lot of support for external consultancies. Now we are incorporating, when you see that you are generating some traction in this market, so then it makes sense to incorporate some local people for the content team that can translate, check all the text of the platform, the website, and all this kind of stuff. But just to start and to see if it makes sense to invest more money in that country or in that way, I strongly recommend to externalize all this process because it will be faster and cheaper for the short term.
Essentially, do you restrict the number that you're doing at the same time? Do you kind of focus on one and then you have that process and then you roll it out like in a very planned manner?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Oriol, do you have anything to add on this specific topic? Because it's a very laborious kind of work, right?
On the translations and product sort of...
Yeah, if you have to make so many adjustments for each market,
I think
it's hard to avoid.
That certainly, I mean, increases the cost of selecting your first country and your second country and doing it well or not. I mean, I would say that if you, so that potentially my comment here would be, I mean, it's better to create sort of one common platform and try to see whether you can actually, whether you can only sort of have the front end, only sort of translated into languages or customized into languages, and I would wonder whether that also forces you to have actually a full team of SDRs. I mean, for local businesses and so forth. I think at the end of the day, you may also want to think about whether there are some countries or some customers within some countries that you just don't want to serve. I mean, and probably that's not an option for you, but I think that those customers, for most of the products, those customers that force you to really sort of do it in their local language, I would wonder whether that's really a customer worth having, okay? And I think it's important to sort of to test that, no? It's important to test whether if you go to France, I mean, you can actually do it in English, or whether doing it in English will actually segment your customer base in France, and you will only tackle, I mean, those that are more receptive to English. Potentially, if you go to France and you can do it all in English, maybe you will end up having the most international French companies. Hey, voila, which is probably a good thing, no? Or if you go to Italy only with English, maybe you will only have the most international Italian companies, which I guess it's good. So I think that there's a trade-off there to be had and to think through it, because having 20 different versions, I mean, nowadays I think that it doesn't make a lot of sense, except for some specific companies that obviously are more sort of in the, maybe you have a more regulatory tech or legal tech, no?
Okay, good. Is there one last question? Yes, Nick.
I was wondering about a partner-led approach. So as opposed to spending £1 million on setting up an office in New York, or burning £10 million over a few years to try to take the US market, about working with a software vendor, reseller, consultants out there to do the hard work for you and to take some dream off the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that a viable alternative, having a software reseller or vendor rather than essentially setting up these expensive operations and offices elsewhere? We'll go through each of you for an answer on this. Let's start with you, Juan.
Well, this is another strategy that you can do, but for example, from our experience in the past, we were trying to do that through partners or resellers, and what we have learned is that if you don't know how to sell your product in the local market, sometimes it's very difficult to explain to the partner how they have to sell your solution or how they have to integrate your technology in other companies. So for us, the most important was to understand the market, understand how is the buying process of our customers, and then we can go to a partner and try to motivate them and teach them how they have to sell our solution. But again, our technology is very technical, it's very related with with the law, and it's very specific product. So that's why for us it's better to first understand how we have to sell this service abroad, and then talk with different partners to distribute our solutions in other countries.
You've tried it, have you, with resellers or distributors?
Yes, we were trying.
Yeah.
We were trying, and well, it was not the best.
Didn't work out too
work
well.
out.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what you have to do is to hire someone to manage this partner for sure, because it's a full-time job. We're trying to do this with combining the daily routines of the account executive, and what you are doing is, losing the focus. You make them to put the focus on different topics, and I think that to do the process or follow the process from the SDR, AI, and customer success is very important that they have a lot of specialization, and it means a lot of focus on their daily routines. And they have to do every day the same and in the same way. If you are getting them, okay, now you have to support this partner, for them it's easier in terms of, okay, I have this opportunity, I go to visit with the partner, so the motivation maybe is not the best for your end goal.
Okay, and Alex, how about you? Have you had an experience with this?
Yes, I totally agree with Juan. I think when you create a SaaS company, you need to build the SaaS fundamentals at the beginning, which is to have a sales team and a customer success team, a support team, product team, of course, and engineering team. I mean, you need to know how to run a company, with all of these resources. And I think a partnership program is something for a later stage SaaS companies. That's in my opinion.
I would be even more assertive. Run away from partners until you are at Series Bs. Particularly, run away from the big four or big five or whatever, it's the big number right now. I mean, they are the biggest time wasters that you can have in SaaS. To be honest with you, I mean, they're just shit at partnering with the small companies. But yeah, they will want to meet with you, and particularly, they will want you to meet with their customers so that they can have another meeting, okay, to sell their big 1 million euro project, and they will tell you, oh, sorry, there was no space for your solution in the end with that big customer. So to me, run away from them unless you are sort of in a very niche market. And I think that until you are sort of at 5 million or 10 million ARR, it just makes total nonsense, to invest time with them.
Correct. I totally agree. And there is another factor, apart from this, I totally agree, which is the product evolution. And the very early stage, your product is evolving continuously, and the sales pitch, it is changing every quarter, let's say, or maybe even every month. So if you need to keep it's impossible to keep, a partner, like, no, now we have a new feature, a new product, a new approach. And also you're going to take, you have the risk of doing the product that the partner wants, not the product that you see that the market wants, no? So I think there are a lot of factors.
Conflict of interest. Okay, this is the very last question, and we're just going to get the most relevant person to answer. Go for it.
Yeah, I want to make a follow-up question on this topic. You're mentioning to get away from partners. I guess you're talking about sales partners. But my question is, when it comes to integration partners, or for instance, in platforms that require some continuous management, for example, marketing platforms that requires a
external ones, right?
Yeah.
So this question is a follow-on from that. It's about having a partner. It's kind of a technical or maintenance partner.
For integrations, for example.
Yeah, an external one. Who wants to take this question?
I don't have experience on this.
No?
So
Yes.
You probably have a more
We
relevant.
are working with
exper-
several partners that are doing all the integration, because at the end we are selling only the product. We are not doing the integration, so we provide all the documentation, all the API. But believe me that it's a very it's a pain when you have to deal with these kind of companies, because as a software as a service company, we're trying to provide the best user experience since the very beginning. It means that when we are calling the company, the SDR is calling the company, we have to build a really strong relationship with your customer. The problem is when you are putting these kind of integrations in the process, some of the times they are damaging your image, because they are not having the same customer success team or the same processes or the same way to manage or build the relationship with the end customer. At the end, you have to use them. If not, you are going to have to do all the integrations by yourself, and this is not possible, and this is not something that we are not going to do. But sometimes they are not helping to speed up the sales cycle. They are more damaging your image than helping you do.
My question to your CTO is, why do you need an integration partner? And ask him again and again and again. And finally he will say, okay, I will build something that doesn't need an integration partner. That's it. That easy. I mean, it's going to be a pain in the ass. No?
Okay, I will call my CTO
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Sure, good
you
idea.
probably need it. But if
True,
you're
no,
more,
absolutely.
but
Good question for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, but if from zero
It's
you
true.
need an integration partner, you're fucked up, my friend. I mean, come on.
yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so it's unanimous on both of those topics. I think is manage everything within your team if you can. Okay, thank you so much. Let's give it up for our speakers. It's really. Toby's going to take your mic.
Okay, thank you.
I think we ran over time a fair bit there, but we had they've got some really good experience, and I thought that was a really good panel. So we've let it run a bit. I'm going to speak now with Javier from the SaaS Institute, and Javier also has an experience of his background of growing UserZoom, which is one of Spain's largest SaaS companies. So he's going to talk about his experience with that, and also his consulting on basically developing these, these international sales processes as well, that he consults on with the SaaS Institute. You mic'd up? Let's just see if he's mic'd up.
What's the time? Hola. Hola. Sí, ¿no?
You got it?
Yo
Can you
creo que
can
sí,
you hear
sí,
Javier?
perfecto.
Yeah? Good,
Sí.
good. Okay. Okay, this is our second chat. So, first of all, why don't you tell us your background experience? Introduce, you can talk through UserZoom, the SaaS Institute, and give us everyone a good understanding of your background and experiences.
Great. I am an entrepreneur myself. I've been working in what it was called internet, 20 years. Well, what is internet? No? But at that time is what do you do? I work in internet. So I've been working in internet for almost 20 years. I built the first user experience consulting firm in Spain, quite successfully, I think. Afterwards, I founded and I was co-CEO of UserZoom. That is I think is one of the biggest software as a service companies in Spain. I've been also investing in SaaS companies, advising other companies, and now I have founded the SaaS Institute to help other SaaS startups to grow and scale.
Great. Okay. So there's a lot of experience in different areas there. Let's just kind of recap on do you have any thoughts on the panel that we've just had? Because we're going to cover a lot of that ground as well. What have been key topics from that panel that you've experienced in?
They've said lots of things. It's very difficult to do a summary, Peter.
Well, let's start with users.
I like the last sentence of Oriol. Fuck up the CTO. that always works.
Okay, so let's start. Should we start with UserZoom, because this is really your SaaS company that you grew, and I'd love to hear about the early initial growing stages and how you got to beginning, the first international sales, really, because I think that there's a few people in the audience at that stage.
I think that in our case, the thing is, why internationalization is such a big issue. I mean, you are from UK, I am from Spain, none of us have too much hair. We are the same. You speak better English
than more than me.
you have better English. You have better English than me. But at the end, what is the difference? Why for companies from Barcelona it's very easy to go to Madrid and sell that is 2 hours and a half from Barcelona, and it's a big issue to go to London that is again 2 hours and a half from here. So the first thing is why is such a big thing? In UserZoom for us was very easy, the decision, because we were selling a software to test and measure user experience. And imagine sell to big corporations, okay? So imagine selling a software to test and measure user experience in 2010 to Spanish companies. It was almost impossible. Go to Telefónica here, go to other big corporations here, they don't even understand why they had to invest on usability and user experience, because the market here was not mature enough for that solution. So we didn't have any other option than going abroad, because for us Spain was not a market.
Did you find that was fairly early as well, actually? Did you find that other markets in Europe were ahead, particularly for user experience?
In our case, we started. We went to the US and we did what here they've said that you don't have to do. And I agree with most of what they said, and maybe now I could do it in a different way. But yes, we went there and we opened an office in California, and we spent quite a lot of money, but it worked. It worked. And I was while they were talking, I was thinking, why in our case maybe it worked, and in other cases it doesn't work. I think that if you have to decide, if you open an office in one country, or you just sell from your headquarters, for example, in the case of Whisbi, their target, if I'm not wrong, is big companies in a very specific verticals: telco, automotive, retail, travel. They have few verticals and big companies. But in our case, we have all the verticals So if you go to all the verticals and you go to all the markets, it's impossible to tackle such a big market. Then you have to decide, okay, if I don't want to decide, if I don't want to choose a specific vertical, because all of them are interesting for me, and UserZoom was going to really big corporations too, then I have to choose a market. And you cannot try to sell in the US to all their industries without being there and become a US company. And this is what we did. We went there. We hired an office. We hired people there. And one thing that I think it is very, very important is that one of the founders went there to live and to launch the office. And I think this is important because it's the only way to, as Alex was saying, to maintain the culture of the company, to control, etc.
Yeah. Let me just touch on a few background elements on this. Did you guys already fundraise at this point? Series A at this point?
No, we opened the US without our money.
Okay. Nice.
It was other time because right now there are lots of VCs in Barcelona willing to put money, but at that time in 2008, maybe there was here in Barcelona 4 or 5 VCs. It was much more difficult. We signed our first $500,000 the week after Lehman Brothers falls.
Good timing.
Yeah. I didn't know if I had to go.
Market.
I didn't know if I had to go to the registry to sign because I thought they are not going to sign the funding.
Okay. So before you had the consultancy before, did you bootstrap essentially all the way up until this point? And so you're reinvesting your
this is what we did,
profits into your business. Did you keep that California office throughout the rest of the lifespan of the company?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, right now we have around 100 people in California.
100, fantastic. And then you also branched into London, right? Or
Manchester.
Manchester, okay.
We then after we did quite well in the States, and then we said, okay, which is the other more mature market that we can go? And we decided that was the UK. So we did exactly the same. And then the person that we wanted to be the managing director, the country manager of the UK was in Manchester. So we said, okay, we don't need to be in London. And I think it was a good decision because in Manchester salaries were lower. There was not so much pressure as in London. Manchester is 1.5 hours from London with the train. Yeah. And at the end, we had also to open the office in London because at the end, so right now we have office in London and office in Manchester.
Okay. Did a founder move to each office or
no? I was flying to Manchester every week.
Okay. Yes. So when Alex from Whisbi was talking about the sales squads, and he mentioned that you'd help them implement this. Did you have that kind of strategy? Did you use this type of system before in UserZoom? So you already had experience with that, and that's how you'd.
Yeah, we had two sales teams totally different. The European sales team and the US sales team, and then we were experimenting. And in the European sales team, we had two teams. We had two teams, the SDR teams and the account executive teams. And in the US, they were working by squads. And we saw that in our case, there were more pros in working with the squads so we changed also the way we were working in Europe.
That's just a matter of, instead of having two departments, you'd partner up the SDRs with the BDMs. And then you get working together. They have a much better kind of efficiency, a much better.
And another thing that I did was that at the beginning I had Europe divided in countries. So we had Germany, we had Spain, we had UK, we had Scandinavia, and we had Australia. And then I said, okay, what is more important, the cultural difference, the language, or the knowledge on the industry? And at the end, I realized that a French guy in the telco industry preferred to talk with an expert on telco even if this person was Spanish, than with a French that was not an expert on telco. So I changed how we were working, and instead of working by countries, we changed to work by industry experts. So we were traveling much more because we were traveling much more, but we could give, I think, better service to clients.
So you had a lot of moving parts to this because you're also, in the beginning you're trying to choose your sector, right? And then you're trying to choose your countries, and then you're picking out members of your team to develop the kind of methods of the sales strategy that you guys are going to use. And then also you're picking out specialists in certain areas to consult with your clients in that sector. Okay, how do you do that quickly? Because I think that's it sounds almost a bit overwhelming, you know, and people in an early stage SaaS probably thinking ahead. Do you have any advice on how they can, you know, resolve those problems quickly or iterate through that as fast as possible?
The problem that we had, and I think that lots of SaaS companies have, is that if you sell to big companies, your sales cycle is around 4-6 months. The ramp-up period of the salesperson is 3 months. What I think is that, or at least my case is, I was responsible of bringing the money of the next year, taking decisions that I knew that were not going to have impact in that year, but it would have impact the next year. And then the sales VP was managing the goals of that year. When you have so big sales cycles, you have to do the strategy in advance, because every small movement is going to take a lot to see results.
Yeah, and obviously you're using those results to then formulate the strategy going forward. So you successfully branched out into several countries. You're in the States, you're in the UK, you've got clients.
We were selling lots of
clients in France and Germany. And did you find any unique challenges when you scaled to that level? When you're successfully operating and you're very internationally diverse, did you find any unique challenges maintaining your portfolio of customers and also growing? How do you kind of manage the latter stage of that?
Maintaining the customers.
Yeah, I mean, what challenges did you have at that stage? Because essentially, what you've already achieved is what a lot of people in the audience here are kind of looking at working on. What do you find is the main challenge at that point? Is it just maintaining that international?
No, the challenge, I think, in my case, was two challenges. One is, as you say, maintain customers, because at the end, you know, if you want to grow, it's more important to don't have churn than sell more, and you can do the maths. If you sell 20 million in ARR and you have a churn of a 20%, this means that you are losing every year 4 million. So if you sell 6 new millions in new revenue, you are growing very, very few. And there is a point in which you can even start to go down. So maintain churn is very difficult. And at the end, I think is one of the main and for us was a challenge. It was a challenge. The second is that you never find or at least my experience is that you never find a perfect product market fit in which you find a market that it is very, very, very big, where you can grow and grow doing exactly the same. I think that the market is made by small niches, and each niche you need to approach in different ways. So what it worked 1 year, the next year, if you want to grow, and we are talking about growing 50, 60, 100% each year, you need to do different things.
Yeah. So, I mean, this reminds me of how Juan was talking about in Signaturit. He's doing some research into every market that he goes into, understanding the culture there, doing some kind of tests, initial sales efforts to get some feedback. It's very much like that kind of process that you're talking about. So you're repeating this and taking the learnings which are unique for every location, every country and each niche.
And not only every country. Sometimes it's a new type of company, because, for example, in our case, we were very, very good. Our first customers were eBay, IBM, Google. We were very good at selling at the top companies. But how many Googles are out there? Then you have to try to look to change the product to go to the next level of companies, no? And this is not easy.
So you want to keep the same kind of size customers?
You wanna?
Do you want to keep the same kind of size customers so that you're not adjusting your product for
you have to adjust it because the needs are different, etc. So you have to change things or to add new feature or change. You have to change. And
you come across that anyway, right?
Yeah.
How about companies that have a lower price point and they're not kind of like your B2B, your typical B2B sale? That's your larger accounts that take 3 to 6 months to close. Do you have any advice on how to manage that? Because you won't be able to have the same investment into sales, right?
The thing is that sales, the sales cycle is always long, because if you rely on outbound, inbound is different. But if you rely on outbound, even if the average ARPA is not very big, you are calling a person that don't know you. You are trying to sell him something. He's not going to take a company is not going to take the decision the next day. He needs some time, and before you get that call, maybe you need 2-3 weeks in order to engage with that person, sending emails, and that SDR, in order to ramp up, is going to need 2 months. So at the end, the sales cycle is always long.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I'm going to ask some more questions as well. Do you have any other advice that we haven't touched on? No. Let's see if does anyone have any questions for Javier? He's got a lot of experience building these international sales strategies. Maybe we've covered it. We've covered a lot of the international kind of topics.
With 3 experts.
3 experts and 4. There is one. Yeah. Oh, there is a mic. Fantastic.
Cool. So I was wondering how you define a market mature enough. Do you have any metrics for that, or what's your methodology for that?
Say it again. I couldn't hear it.
How do you define a market matured enough when you enter? Is there any metrics you apply, or?
Is that mature enough to start selling into a market that's mature enough to start selling into?
Yeah, I think that you. Yeah, I understand what you. I don't know. I think that you go to the market, you start to pitch, and if they don't get what you're saying, maybe you're not communicating well. Maybe your product is not good. Maybe the market is not mature, and then I prefer the third option.
Okay. So this final part of the event is we're going to have some startups speaking with Javier, and they're going to talk about their product, their situation they're in now, and how they tackle internationalization. So let's invite them up.
Yes, please. Sit.
Let's invite them up. We have Brutalat. We'll actually need a couple more chairs up here as well. Javier, you're here.
I'm going to stand up.
Oh, you're going to stand?
Yes.
Well, fine. Let's have 3 here then. Brutal here.
No, pero me quedo de pie.
Robert Salo from Analitza. Oh, sorry. You're right here next to me. Great. And Katerin, Gonzalo. I'm gonna hand it over and leave it to you, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've been talking about internationalization in companies that are quite big. Okay, Whisbi is already a consolidated company. Signaturit is also a very successful startup. But what about companies that are starting and that are starting their journey? How they think on internationalization? No? So I'm going to start with Brutal, with Thiago. So tell us in a couple of minutes or 1 minute of the time you need what Brutal app does.
Hey, so basically we help other startups to find product market fit and to understand what they need to build, or what their users want. Everybody says that you need to talk to their users. We basically say that you don't need to do that because it takes a lot of time, and we do that by automatically interviewing the people, analyzing what they say, and going back to you and say, hey, that's what your users want, that's what you need to build, so you can build a Brutal product. So that's basically what we do.
Is this the competition of UserZoom?
Kind of, but in a different part of the market. So one of the things that we noticed that there are a lot of competitors in the upside of the market. So we identified that on the middle and the bottom of the market for the small startups that are struggling to find product market fit, they are not a solution. So we build a self-service bottoms-up solution that can solve that need. Okay, so if I don't know if you have understood, is basically if correct me, is usability is kind of usability testing for startups or small companies, right? Yeah. Okay. How much of the revenue you have is done by outbound or by inbound? So right now it's more or less a 50-50, and it should be more on the inbound, but as we are super early stage, we are tackling our network and tackling the UX and product hubs that we are part of it, and that comes from the inbound, the outbound that we are coming. But as we scale more, it's going more to on the inbound because our product, it produce a video, like a feedback and video it's part of a content marketing that then can be shared. So that's part of our strategy to grow as well. What is your international strategy? What do you want to do? Do you want to sell in Spain only at the beginning? Are you already selling outside? Do you just sell what the leads that comes from inbound, but you are not really pushing other markets? So for us, actually, selling in Spain, it's selling internationally. Our main clients are in the United States. We sell in dollars, so we are mindset's completely there. Our first client was from here, but the second to the 10th was all from outside. Most of them in the United States, some from Europe, from France, from Germany. But that's our mindset. Like everything that we are doing, I think from the companies from especially the United States, we have our panel of testers. 80% of people are from the United States for similar reasons for what you discussed, that the level of maturity on the UX and product, what people need to build outside of Spain are higher, and they also needs us to be there and to be provided to those clients. And what do you do to sell in the US? Be there, like physically as well. Yeah. Okay. So some of the clients that we met was basically by being there and being on events like this and connecting and making those relationships since the beginning. Then there is a lot of also online follow-ups on that. So as we are early stage, we take a lot of advantage of that. Like, so if you go to our website, it's like request access, and we took advantage of all of those things to have a very close relationship, because as being an early stage, we also need to figure out what's the correct thing that we need to do. So it's a bad thing in the beginning that what's our differentiation? That's as Oriol was saying, but we use that to be very close to our customers. In order to sell a Brutal app, do you need to? The process is done 100% online, the sale, or you need to meet the client at some point, even by telephone or in person? No, we don't. And for
attending this segment of the market, like the mid to the bottom part of the market, we cannot be there. It's impossible, right? Like everything needs to be self-service. Right now, we don't. There is a part that's done by talking because we need to learn as well. Like we need to get feedback from our product as well. But if we do everything to be as self-service as possible, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, the model doesn't work, and we need to go up. And then we have other type of challenge that you face in UserZoom.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Here we have a great example of a company that it is starting, and from the beginning. Almost 100% international. Congratulations, because it's very difficult to sell in the US. Robert, explain a little bit what Analitza does.
What Analitza does, we basically help companies identify which of their customers are at risk of churning. And we focus on B2B companies and on specific sectors like manufacturing and distribution. So you have sectors like retail, where companies like Amazon know their customers very well. But when it comes to distribution and wholesale, they are very low tech. So what we bring is a set of artificial intelligence tools to help them manage their customer base. And as you said, churn is a very important issue. And basically we help them with that. We have customers from small distribution local companies in Girona to multinationals like Celsa. They are a steel manufacturing company.
Give us an example of the value that you provide to a customer in order to understand what you really do.
Yeah, so basically when you have 2,000 different customers, each one with their own purchasing patterns, it's very difficult to manage them as a whole. So you have to know each one of them very well. The frequency they are buying, the kind of products they are buying, and what we do is we automate that work. We do what a good salesman would do if they had 24 hours every single day, which is to analyze the pattern of every single customer and identify when those customers are deviating from those patterns. So basically we are identifying which customers are stopping buying from you.
And you're saying that you're selling mainly in Spain. When do you want to start to sell abroad?
As quick as possible. I mean, for me, the key of...
as quick as possible is tomorrow?
Maybe probably the end of the year or maybe next year. Before you know how to sell internationally, you have to know how to sell. And one of the things we do is, well, you have asked Tiago, do you do inbound or outbound? We are outbound 100%. So the type of companies we target is companies that are quite relatively big. And so here in Spain, specifically in Catalonia, we are learning how to sell to them. We've made as many mistakes as you can make. We've tried to go through partners. That didn't work as well as we expected. We've tried several strategies. And for us, the key to going international is three things. One is the market. Our market is international, so the manufacturing and distribution companies in the UK have the same problems as they do in Spain, which is having a good control over their customers. Another thing is the product. Our product is very easy to internationalize. It's only a matter of language, if that. And the third key element is the team. I've been working 6 years in the UK, so I feel as comfortable doing business in the UK as I feel in Barcelona. I'm the third member of the team. She's from Colombia. She has experience working in the UK as well. So we have international experience in the team.
How do you want to sell, for example, in UK? Do you want to open an office there? Do you want to sell from here? How do you want to do it?
When you start thinking internationally, you really don't know what's the best way. And we are working with a company, it's called the SaaS Institute, you may know them.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. They are helping us define the sales strategy and also listening to the experience of people like Alex. Initially you think, okay, I want to sell, I need a salesperson. The first feedback you receive is, as a founder, you are the best salesperson a company can have. So what you need is an SDR, and that's what we have at the moment. Alex has said that. If you want to start setting up your sales department, your sales team, start with an SDR. And so then you think, okay, I want to go to a country, I need to open an office there. Well, why? Your SDR can sell from here, can try to get meetings from here. And then you'll have to see how local people respond. Why the UK? Because it's a country that we feel comfortable having meetings with. Probably in France, depending on the type of companies, they would prefer to have someone who is native speaking in French, and while in the UK, they are extremely used to have, I mean, I've worked there, and in a meeting you could have people from Sri Lanka, people from the US, people from South Africa, people from a lot of different places around the world. So for us, it's quite a natural market, and they are quite mature in terms of technology.
Thank you, Ruben. Catering. What is catering? It's easy to explain, I think.
Okay. Yes, catering is an online marketplace for business catering. Essentially, we provide an online platform through which companies can compare and choose the best catering for their meetings or events.
So why I'm going to use catering and not Globo?
Okay. Essentially, through catering, we provide caterings for companies, and Globo goes to B2C. So we do care about the caterings that we choose, and also the companies, which obviously care about which provider they choose. They can, through our platform, choose among a variety of different providers, only buying to catering, meaning that they only need to make business with one provider, which is catering. They trust.
How do you, are you already selling abroad, or where are your plans?
Okay. We started 10 months ago in Barcelona. Then in December, we opened Madrid. It was a bit of a challenge because in Barcelona, despite we've been selling through phone, we had the possibility to visit clients, and we also have in Madrid, but it's a bit more expensive, and we want to try not to do that in order to be able to sell it by phone 100%. So once we started to do that, we started to look at other cities outside Spain. So we started looking in Milan, in Italy, because of strategic priorities. And our approach towards internationalization, let's say, is to first look at the companies that we are already providing solutions, if they have offices in other cities that we can provide them. Right now, we made a providers set up in Milan. We've been like 1 month gathering caterings in Milan. And Pepe Jeans, which is a client here in Spain, also has offices in Milan. So we had the first sale in Milan by them, but we didn't acquire any client there yet. Like this was a client that was acquired here. So
besides that, why you chose Italy?
Okay, strategically we saw that there are big players in the northern Europe. So we saw the opportunity in the Mediterranean Europe. We saw that it is Portugal and Italy, besides Spain, some markets that there is not a player there yet. And Italy is quite a big market. It's even a bit bigger than Spain. So that's why we decided to go to Italy after Spain.
Now a question to both of you. Any takeaway from what you've heard today? Anything that has maybe helped you to I'm not going to say change the strategy, but maybe change what you wanted to do, or is there anything that you would highlight on what you've heard here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Alex experience has resonated a lot. Our product is very easy to internationalize, unlike Signaturit, which is very local, and you need to perform a lot of modifications. And knowing that he's selling to the US without having people in the US, for us is quite inspiring. It's like, okay, we can do it if we find the resources here. We are not talking about the UK, because you can easily take a plane to the UK, but that definitely is, at first when you start a company, think, if I want to sell internationally, I'll have to open an office in London, an office in Denmark, an office in Germany, an office in the UK, so that sounds extremely complicated. But it doesn't have to be that way. So if you have the good sales strategy and you have like a good understanding of the sales process with SDRs, with account executive, defining exactly what each role does, then it's easier to attack a different market without having to open a physical presence there. So yeah, that was extremely, extremely good to know.
Great. Anything else on your side?
Yeah, my takeaway would be like, starting to think on internationalization from the very beginning or as soon as possible. And also what Oriol mentioned before, like being careful to tackle big corporates too early. At least for us, this is a takeaway, because we do have in our pipeline some corporates, but we currently cannot afford a 4 to 6 month sales cycle, and we don't know yet how to sell them. So we are in like mid-sized companies. So sometimes it is I don't know, greedy to tackle these companies, but we need to at least be careful on how we do this, and with a lot of being careful, because we're gonna waste a lot of time there.
Well, for me, it's the challenge of balancing, of having a very strong focus on, like, don't talk to partners, don't go with the big, but also have experimenting, because everything changes. Like if you have one strategy in 1 year, as you mentioned, like next year you need to change it. So how can you handle all this experimentation to figure out what's the best way to go to market at the same time of not making mistakes? So this tiny balance, it's something that we are thinking a lot and working a lot.
Great. So thank you very much to them. And as SaaStock is from Dublin and from London, we've decided to have some beers and celebrate in the way they do it. So we can go there and have some beers. Thank you very much.